"You are no longer welcome in this house, Warren." My mother's voice was ice cold as she stood in the kitchen doorway. I stared at her, waiting for the joke to land. It never did. Doreen's eyes were steel. My wife Elaine sat at the table, sipping coffee, saying nothing. Not a single word in my defense. The silence crushed me harder than any scream could have. I had just buried my father 6 months ago. I had been the one holding his hand through every chemotherapy session. I had been the one cleaning his bedpans at 3 in the morning while everyone else slept. I had been the one sitting in sterile hospital rooms, watching him fade away day by day. And now, standing in the home I grew up in, I was being erased like I never existed. "Mom, what are you talking about?" My voice cracked. She crossed her arms. "Pack your things. You have 1 hour." Elaine still said nothing. She just looked at her phone like this was a normal Tuesday morning. I felt my hands shaking. This was not spontaneous. This was planned. Coordinated. They had discussed this before I even walked through the door. I walked upstairs in a daze, threw clothes into a duffel bag, and left without another word. I had nowhere to go. I sat in my truck in a grocery store parking lot, trying to make sense of what just happened. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter Nicole. "Mom says you left us. Why would you do that?" I called her immediately, straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. She was blocking me out. 6 months earlier, everything had been different. My father was dying, but we were a family. Then his will was read. Suddenly, everything went to my mother. The house, the savings, the life insurance, the investment accounts, all of it. I had been written out completely. No explanation, no warning. The lawyer said Dad had changed it 2 weeks before he died. That never made sense to me. Dad had always promised me the house. He told me 100 times, "This place is yours when I'm gone, son. You earned it." He said it with such conviction that I never doubted him. Not once. But when the papers were finalized, my name was nowhere. Just Doreen's. I tried to ask her about it once. She shut me down hard. "Your father knew what he was doing," she snapped. The conversation ended there. Now I understood. This was never about inheritance. This was about control, and I had just lost everything. I slept in my truck for 2 nights. The seats were hard. My back screamed every time I moved. I tried calling Nicole again and again. Still nothing. I drove past my mother's house and saw my daughter's car in the driveway. She was living there now, with them. The 2 women who had just destroyed my life. On the 3rd morning, I ran into our old neighbor, Mrs. Calloway, at the gas station. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me. She shifted her feet and avoided eye contact. "Warren, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry." I asked her what she heard. She shifted her weight. "They said you abandoned them, just walked out without explanation, said you had a breakdown or something." My stomach dropped. That was the story they were spreading. I was the villain. I was the one who left. I was the unstable one who could not handle his father's death. Not the man who was thrown out of his own family like trash. Elaine was convincing. Doreen was respected in the community. She had friends everywhere. And I was just the son who disappeared. I realized then that this was war, and I was already losing badly. They had the narrative. They had the support. I had nothing but the truth, and nobody was listening. Late that night, I snuck back to the house. I still had a key to the garage. I needed to grab some tools, some personal belongings, things they could not take from me. The house was dark. Every window was black. I moved quietly, my heart hammering in my chest. I filled a box with old photo albums and paperwork. Then I saw it sitting in the corner, a stack of letters bound with a rubber band. I recognized my handwriting immediately. Letters I had written to Nicole over the years. Birthday cards with heartfelt messages. Notes from business trips telling her I missed her. Messages telling her I loved her and was proud of her. None of them had been opened. Not a single one. The envelopes were still sealed. My wife had kept them from her, hidden them away like evidence of a crime she was covering up. My hands trembled as I flipped through them. Then I found one that was ripped in half. A note was stapled to it in Elaine's handwriting. This never happened. I stood there in the dark garage, holding the pieces of my destroyed letter. My entire relationship with my daughter had been sabotaged. Deliberately, methodically. I took the box and left. This time, I locked the garage behind me. I rented a small room above a mechanic's workshop on the edge of town. The place smelled like motor oil and old coffee grounds. The bed was a narrow cot with a thin mattress. The bathroom was shared with 2 other tenants. A single window looked out onto a brick wall. But it was mine. Nobody could take it from me. Nobody could throw me out. I sat on that cot for hours, staring at the water-stained ceiling, trying to figure out who I was anymore. I had been a husband for 23 years, a father for 19, a son my entire life. Now I was none of those things. I was just a man with a duffel bag and a truck. I felt hollow, empty, like someone had scooped out my insides and left only skin behind. I started writing everything down in a notebook I bought at the dollar store. Dates, conversations, details I could remember, timelines. I titled it The Map. I did not know where it would lead, but I needed to document the truth, because the truth was all I had left. One entry read, Elaine never gave Nicole my letters. Why? What was she hiding? Another, Dad's will changed 2 weeks before he died. Who witnessed it? I was building something. Piece by piece, I spent weeks digging through public records at the county office. I found the lawyer who handled Dad's will. His name was Bryant Corman. He had an office downtown in a fancy glass building. I called and made an appointment, pretending I needed estate advice for a sick friend. He agreed to see me the next afternoon. When I walked into his office, I recognized him immediately. He had been at Dad's funeral, sitting in the back row, wearing expensive sunglasses. I had thought it was strange then. Now it made perfect sense. Bryant was young, maybe 35, with slicked back hair and a fake smile that never reached his eyes. I asked him general questions about wills and mental capacity and what made documents legally binding. Then I slipped in a specific question. What if someone changes a will while they're on heavy medication? Is that legal? Bryant shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair. Technically, yes, as long as they can sign their name and seem to understand what they're doing. I nodded slowly. Even if they're confused, disoriented? He hesitated for just a second too long. That's a gray area. Legally gray. I recorded the whole conversation on my phone, hidden in my jacket pocket. It was not much evidence, but it was something. A crack in their armor. I started volunteering at the Veterans Center downtown 3 days a week. I needed to be around people, to feel useful again instead of like a ghost drifting through an empty life. That is where I met him. Judge Franklin Hargrave, retired from the county circuit court, 72 years old, sharp as a blade despite his age. We got talking over coffee one afternoon in the center's small cafeteria. I told him my story. Not everything, just the basics. Just enough. He listened carefully, his eyes never leaving mine, never judging. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. Your mother used a loophole, he said quietly. If your father was on heavy medication, his signature might have been coerced or obtained under duress. But proving it is nearly impossible without witnesses. I felt my hope sinking like a stone in deep water. Then he said something that changed everything. Unless you can find someone who saw the signing, someone who felt uncomfortable about it, someone with a conscience. I asked him how I would even start looking for someone like that. He pulled out a pen and wrote a name on a napkin. Dina Walsh, a state clerk at the county office. She processes every will that comes through. She sees everything. And she remembers things that do not sit right. Dina Walsh worked in a basement office that smelled like old paper, musty filing cabinets, and lemon cleaner. She was maybe 50 years old, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and a kind smile that made me feel like I could trust her. I told her I was researching my father's estate for family records. She pulled up the file on her ancient computer. I remember this one, she said quietly, glancing at the screen. It came through fast. Too fast. Made me uncomfortable. I asked what she meant by that. She looked around the empty office, making sure nobody else was listening through the thin walls. Usually, will amendments take weeks to process properly. This one was rushed through in 3 days. Someone with influence pushed it through the system. My heart started racing. Do you remember who requested the rush? She clicked a few more keys, scrolling through digital records. The official request came from Bryant Corman's office downtown, but the actual paperwork was hand-delivered by a woman. I remember because she was extremely pushy, rude, demanding, made threats about reporting me if I delayed processing. I showed her a photo of Elaine on my phone. Dina's eyes widened with recognition. That's her. That's exactly her. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Elaine had been involved from the very beginning, every single step. I tried calling Nicole again 2 weeks later. This time, miraculously, she answered, but her voice was cold, distant, like I was a telemarketer interrupting her day. What do you want, Dad? The word Dad sounded like an insult coming from her mouth. I asked if we could meet somewhere. Talk face to face, just the two of us. She sighed heavily into the phone. There's nothing to talk about. You left us. You abandoned Mom when she needed you most. You were always selfish. Nana told me everything about you. My chest tightened with pain. Nicole, that's not true. None of it. I didn't leave. I was forced out. Your grandmother threw me out. Ask her why. She laughed. It was bitter, mean, nothing like the daughter I remembered. Right? Just like you forced Mom to hide all those horrible letters you wrote about me. The ones where you called me a burden and a mistake. I froze completely. My mind went blank. What letters? Nicole, what are you talking about? She paused. I could hear her breathing. The ones you sent to Nana over the years. Private letters. I read them last month. You said I ruined your life, that you wished I was never born. My voice cracked. Nicole, I never wrote those letters. I swear on my life, I never said any of that. She was silent for a long moment. I went straight to my storage unit across town. I had kept boxes and boxes of old journals from over the years. Personal writings, thoughts, diary entries, letters I had drafted but never sent. I tore through them frantically, looking for proof of what I actually wrote. Then I found it buried at the bottom of a plastic container. Copies of the real letters I had written to Nicole over 15 years. The ones Elaine had never given her. I compared them side by side with photos of the fake ones Doreen had shown Nicole. The handwriting was close enough to fool a casual observer, but not exact, not perfect. The tone was completely different. The real letters were full of love, pride, encouragement, stories about her childhood. The fake ones were cruel, cold, hateful, blaming her for ruining my marriage and my career. It was a masterpiece of evil manipulation. I took photos of everything with my phone. I scanned the pages at a print shop. I built a detailed timeline showing when I actually wrote each letter versus when the fake ones were supposedly sent. This was evidence. Real, tangible, documented proof that my mother had committed fraud. That she had forged documents specifically to destroy my relationship with my daughter. I called Dina that same night, told her exactly what I found. 2 weeks later, I saw them together. Elaine and Doreen. At a fancy brunch spot downtown called The Terrace. It had white tablecloths and waiters in bow ties. They were laughing, celebrating something, drinking mimosas like they had just won the lottery. My mother was wearing Dad's expensive watch, the gold Rolex he promised me on his deathbed. Elaine was using a credit card I recognized immediately. It used to be mine. Our joint account. She had changed the name after kicking me out. I watched them through the large front window for a long time, just standing there on the sidewalk. They looked so happy, so free, so victorious, like they had won some great battle and were celebrating their conquest. Then something inside me snapped. Not anger, not rage, just cold determination. I walked inside slowly, calmly. I approached their table in the corner by the window. They looked up simultaneously. Shock flashed across both their faces. Doreen's smile vanished instantly. Elaine's hand froze halfway to her mouth with a forkful of eggs. I did not yell. I did not make a scene. I did not cause a disruption. I just leaned down close to their table and said quietly, I know everything. Doreen's fork clattered loudly onto her plate. Elaine's face went completely white. I smiled calmly. Enjoy your meal, ladies. Then I walked out without looking back. As I left the restaurant and walked toward my truck, I noticed something unusual. Doreen had left her expensive designer purse on the chair beside her table. In her panic and shock at seeing me, she had completely forgotten it. I waited outside for 10 minutes, leaning against a parking meter. She never came back for it. So I walked back inside and turned it in to the young hostess at the front desk. But not before I quickly took a photo of something interesting I found inside. Something that changed everything. A bank statement. Recent. Dated just 2 weeks ago. Printed on official bank letterhead. There was a large transfer highlighted in yellow marker. $50,000. Transferred from Doreen's primary estate account to something called Tremaine Solutions, LLC. I had never heard of that company before, but the name Tremaine was definitely Elaine's maiden name. Before she married me and became Elaine Brennan, I researched it that same night at the public library. Tremaine Solutions was a shell company, a fake business, registered exactly 6 months ago, right after Dad died, right when the will was changed. The listed owner was Elaine Tremaine Brennan. The business had no actual operations, no employees, no website, no product, no service. It was just a front. A way to funnel money secretly out of my mother's estate into Elaine's personal accounts. Judge Franklin Hargrave looked at the bank documents for a long time the next morning. His face was completely unreadable. Finally, he looked up at me across his kitchen table. "Warren, this is textbook elder financial abuse. If your mother is unaware of these transfers, and I suspect she is, then your wife is actively stealing from her. This is a serious crime." I asked what I should do with this information. Where do I even start? He picked up his phone, made a call right there in front of me, to someone he knew personally at the state attorney's office, someone he had worked with for decades. He explained the entire situation calmly, gave them the account numbers, the transfer dates, the company registration information, everything I had discovered. When he hung up 5 minutes later, he looked at me seriously. "They are opening an official investigation immediately. This is big, Warren." I felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders. This was real now, official, legal, no longer just my word against theirs. Judge Hargrave leaned forward. "Warren, you need to understand something clearly. This will get extremely ugly. Your mother will be questioned by investigators. Your wife will be investigated thoroughly. Your daughter will be caught in the middle of everything. There will be media attention, public records, court hearings." I nodded slowly. "I know, I understand." I sent a detailed anonymous tip to the state elder abuse office using a burner email account. I outlined everything systematically. The coerced will signed while Dad was heavily medicated. The forged letters designed to destroy my relationship with Nicole. The shell company funneling money. The suspicious transfers totaling over $200,000. I attached clear photos of the bank statement, copies of the forged letters compared directly to the real ones. A complete timeline of events with dates and locations. 3 days later, an official letter arrived at my small rented room. State letterhead, professional, legal. An investigation has been opened regarding the estate of Harold Brennan, deceased. My father's full name printed there in black ink. Seeing it made everything suddenly real, undeniably real. I waited anxiously. Days turned into long weeks. I heard absolutely nothing. Then, one quiet afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered carefully. "Mr. Brennan, this is Investigator Parrish with the State Fraud Division. We need to ask you some detailed questions about your father's estate and the circumstances surrounding his death." I told him everything. Every single detail. Every date. Every conversation. Every lie. Every document. He listened without interrupting once, taking notes. When I finally finished talking an hour later, he said simply, "We will be in touch very soon, Mr. Brennan." Then he hung up. For the first time since being thrown out, I felt like I was actually fighting back. Nicole showed up at my door unannounced 3 weeks later. It was raining. Her eyes were red and swollen. She had clearly been crying for hours. I let her in without saying a single word. She sat on my narrow cot, hands shaking violently. "I found something, Dad," she whispered. "Something horrible." She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and showed me a video file. It was old, grainy, poor quality. My father, sitting in his favorite leather chair, looking directly at the camera with clear, lucid eyes. "If you are watching this, then something bad happened to me. I want you to know that Warren is a good man, the best son I could have asked for. I'm proud of him. Don't trust your mother. Don't trust Elaine. If anything happens to me, they did this. They planned this." Nicole was sobbing uncontrollably now, her whole body shaking. "I found it on Grandpa's old tablet yesterday, hidden in a password-protected folder labeled insurance." He knew, Dad. He knew what they were planning. I felt hot tears sliding down my face for the first time in months. Dad had known. He had tried to warn us. He had tried to protect me even from beyond the grave. Nicole looked at me with devastated eyes. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I believed their lies. I thought you abandoned us." Nicole and I spent the next 2 weeks piecing the entire puzzle together. She told me things I never knew. Details I could never have discovered on my own. About secret meetings between Elaine and Doreen late at night. About hushed phone calls that ended abruptly when Nicole entered the room. About a second will she had seen once, many years ago, tucked in my father's desk drawer in his private study. "I was maybe 12 years old," she said, staring at her hands. "I was looking for stamps to mail a letter to my friend. I found this big manila envelope. It said last will and testament on the outside in Dad's handwriting. I opened it because I was curious. Your name was all over it. You were listed as the main heir to everything. The house, the accounts, everything." I sat up straight, my pulse racing. "Where is it now? Do you know?" She shook her head sadly. "I don't know. I put it back in the drawer immediately. So you've never thought about it again until now." I felt my heart pounding. If that original will still existed somewhere, it would prove everything. It would show that Dad's true intentions were changed, overwritten, stolen. We made a careful plan. Doreen was scheduled to visit her sister in another state next weekend. 3 full days. The house would be completely empty. The house was dark and silent when we arrived just after midnight. Nicole used her old key that Doreen did not know she still had. We moved quickly but quietly through the familiar rooms. My heart pounded so hard in my chest I thought it would explode. Every creak of the old floorboards sounded like thunder. We went straight to the study where Dad used to work. His old oak desk sat in the corner, covered in a thin layer of dust, untouched since his death. Nicole started pulling open drawers frantically. I checked the filing cabinets against the wall. Nothing. Empty. Then I saw it on the highest shelf. A photo album that looked strangely out of place. Too clean. Too new. I pulled it down carefully and opened it with shaking hands. Inside, tucked between pictures of family vacations from 20 years ago, was a folded legal document. I unfolded it carefully under the desk lamp. Last will and testament of Harold Brennan, dated exactly 2 years before he died. My name was listed clearly as primary heir. The house, the savings accounts, the investments, everything. This was it. The original, the real one, the truth. Nicole pointed to something with a trembling finger. Fingerprints, fresh smudges along the edge of the yellowed paper. "Someone handled this recently," she whispered. "Very recently." The official investigation moved surprisingly fast after we submitted the original will. Doreen was called in for formal questioning by state investigators. She tried desperately to act innocent, confused, like a helpless victim. But the evidence was absolutely overwhelming. The forged letters with handwriting analysis, the suspicious transfers documented over months, the manipulated will with witness testimony. Everything pointed directly at a coordinated scheme. She started pointing fingers wildly, blaming Elaine for everything, saying she was tricked and manipulated, claiming she was just a confused widow who trusted the wrong person. But the investigators did not believe her performance. Elaine completely panicked when she was contacted. She immediately hired an expensive lawyer from a big downtown firm, refused to answer any questions without her attorney present. But the paper trail did not lie, could not be explained away. The shell company registered in her name, the transfers she personally authorized, the fingerprints on the original will that should not have been there. It all pointed directly to her. Nicole started receiving threatening text messages late at night. "Keep your mouth shut if you know what's good for you. You're going to regret betraying family. Think about your future before you destroy ours." She showed every single one to me immediately. I told her to take them straight to the police. She did. The investigator added them to the growing case file. Witness intimidation, another serious crime. Elaine was formally charged 3 months later. Financial elder abuse, fraud, forgery, witness intimidation. The evidence against her was overwhelming and undeniable. The video message from my father, the forged letters with professional handwriting analysis, the shell company documentation. Her lawyer tried to negotiate desperately, offered plea deals, reduced charges, community service. The state attorney's office refused everything. They wanted a trial. Doreen was not criminally charged in the end. The investigators determined she was technically a victim, manipulated by Elaine, used as a tool. I did not agree with that assessment at all, but I let it go. The important thing was that the truth was finally out. Official, documented, undeniable. Judge Hargrave called me on a Tuesday afternoon. "Warren, the original will is being legally validated by the probate court. If it holds up under scrutiny, and it will, you'll be officially named executor of your father's entire estate. Everything he wanted you to have." I felt something crack inside me. Relief, validation, grief. My father had not abandoned me. He had not chosen my mother over me. He had tried desperately to protect me, and now, finally, his true wishes would be honored. Nicole was called to testify at a preliminary hearing. She was nervous, terrified, but she did it. She told the complete truth about the letters, the threats, the lies, the manipulation. The courtroom was absolutely silent when she finished. Doreen begged me to meet with her one last time. She called repeatedly, left voicemails, sent letters. Finally, I agreed. We sat in a small diner on the edge of town. The same one we used to go to when I was a kid. Sunday breakfast after church. She looked old now, broken, smaller than I remembered, almost fragile. "I made terrible mistakes," she said. Her voice was weak, shaking. "I was scared and confused. After your father died, I didn't know what to do. I felt lost. Elaine said she'd take care of everything, handle all the complicated legal stuff. I trusted her completely. I didn't know she was stealing." I said nothing, just sat there listening, watching her perform. She reached across the table desperately. "Please, Warren. You're my son. Forgive me. Give me another chance. We can fix this together." I pulled out a printed email from my jacket pocket. One she had sent to Elaine 2 years ago, that the investigators had recovered. "You were right about Warren. He's worthless. Always has been. Just like his father said." I slid it across the table slowly. She stared at it. Her face went completely pale. Her hands started trembling. "No deal," I said quietly. I stood up, dropped a $20 bill on the table for the coffee, and walked out into the sunlight. Behind me I heard her crying. The probate court ruled in my favor 4 months after the investigation began. The original will was officially reinstated. My father's true wishes were finally honored after being buried for so long. I was named executor with full legal authority. The house, the savings accounts, the life insurance payout, the investment portfolio, all of it. Everything Doreen had stolen. Everything Elaine had tried to keep. It was legally mine now. I stood outside the courthouse on a cold November morning, holding the official legal documents in my hands. Nicole was beside me. She squeezed my hand tight. "You did it, Dad. Grandpa would be so proud of you." I nodded slowly, but I did not feel victorious or triumphant. I just felt exhausted. Tired of fighting, tired of anger, tired of revenge. I wanted peace more than anything. Judge Hargrave shook my hand firmly on the courthouse steps. "Your father would be very proud of you, son. You fought for the truth." I hoped desperately he was right. Dina sent me a handwritten card in the mail. "Justice takes time, but it always comes eventually." I put it on my refrigerator. The house was legally mine now, the one I had been violently banned from, the one I grew up in. I had the keys, the deed, everything. And now I had an important decision to make about what came next. I drafted a simple letter. Direct, clear, final. "You are no longer welcome in this home. You have 30 days to vacate the premises completely." I sent it to my mother's temporary address. Certified mail. She would have to sign for it personally. Proof of delivery. 2 days later, Elaine was served with a separate civil lawsuit. Beyond the criminal charges, this was personal. For financial theft, for emotional damage, for destroying my relationship with my daughter. The state case was criminal and public. This was my own fight. I wanted every stolen cent back. With interest, with penalties. Her expensive lawyer tried repeatedly to contact me. Left messages, sent letters. I ignored all of them. There was nothing to negotiate, nothing to discuss, nothing to compromise on. She had stolen from my family, from my dying father, from me, and now she would pay every consequence. Nicole helped me change all the locks on the house. We worked together in comfortable silence. When we finished, I stood on the front porch. The same porch I had been thrown off 8 months ago. It felt completely different now. It felt like mine, like home again. Doreen tried calling my phone dozens of times. I blocked her number. She showed up at the house unannounced. I did not answer the door. She left handwritten letters on the porch. I burned every single one, unopened, unread. Word spread through the small neighborhood incredibly fast. People talked. whispered, gossiped. The truth came out in pieces. Doreen's carefully maintained reputation crumbled like a sandcastle. The church she had belonged to for over 30 years quietly removed her from the community board. No explanation. No announcement. Just gone. Elaine was fired from her job at the marketing firm. The scandal was too much for them. Her employer could not afford the negative association. She moved out of town completely within 2 weeks. I heard through mutual acquaintances she was living with her sister now, in another state, broke, desperate, alone. I felt absolutely nothing when I heard that news. Nicole gave an emotional speech at her school assembly, about strength, about second chances, about standing up for truth even when it hurt terribly, about forgiveness being complicated. I sat in the audience watching her, my daughter, strong, brave, unbroken despite everything. She came to live with me full-time permanently. We renovated the entire house together over the next 6 months, painted all the walls new colors, replaced the old furniture with pieces we picked out together. Made it ours, not my father's house, not Doreen's house, ours. Neighbors stopped me on the street regularly, apologized awkwardly, said they were sorry for believing the lies, for not reaching out, for abandoning me. I accepted their apologies politely, but I did not forget who stood by me. Doreen was moved to an assisted living facility across town 6 months later. Her money was completely gone, spent, stolen by Elaine, wasted on legal fees. She could not afford to maintain a house anymore. Even if I had let her stay, which I would not have. A letter arrived at my house one morning, handwritten, shaky. The envelope was expensive stationery. Warren, I was wrong about everything. I'm sorry for what I did, for what I allowed to happen. Please forgive me. I'm your mother. I held that letter for a long time, just staring at the familiar handwriting. Part of me wanted to respond, to offer some kind of closure, some kind of peace. But I could not yet, maybe not ever. Some wounds cut too deep. I walked to the fireplace, lit a single match, and watched the letter burn slowly. The paper curled and blackened. The ashes floated up the chimney, disappeared into nothing, gone forever. Just like the life we used to have together. I did not feel guilty about burning it. I did not feel sad. I just felt free, unburdened. A few days later, I was cleaning out the dusty attic, going through old boxes of my father's belongings, and I found it. A final envelope, hidden carefully behind a loose board in the corner. My name is written on the front in my father's distinctive handwriting. The letter was dated exactly 1 week before my father died in the hospital. Warren, if you're reading this, then you've made it back home. I knew they would try to take everything from you. Your mother was always weak when it came to money. Elaine was always greedy and manipulative. But you, son, you were always strong, always honest. Don't let them break you. Don't let them win. This house is yours. This life is yours. Live it well. Make it count. I'm so proud of you. I always was. I love you, Dad. I sat on the attic floor and cried. For the first time in years, I let everything out. The pain, the anger, the grief, the loss. I cried until there was absolutely nothing left inside me. Then I wiped my eyes, folded the letter carefully, and put it in my wallet where I would carry it always. I walked downstairs slowly. Nicole was in the kitchen making dinner. The smell of garlic and fresh tomatoes filled the house. She smiled when she saw me. You okay, Dad? I nodded. Yeah, I'm okay now. I opened my notebook one final time. The map. I flipped to the last blank page, and I wrote in careful letters, "Victory isn't loud, it's peace." I closed the book gently, put it on the shelf. I was finally home.